Greetings, everyone. This is Pastor Bruce, and we're taking a look today at Psalm 46:10. 46:10. This is our memory verse for Gospel for Life. I think it's session 5. And so I thought we'd take a look at this verse and break it down, talk about it, and then see how it fits into the the psalm itself, Psalm 46. And the reason why I chose this verse, because there's this verse and verse 1. And in fact, this whole psalm is probably my most favorite psalm. I've got other psalms that I really, really love as well. But this psalm is so helpful. It's so helpful in reorienting us when we're overwhelmed with life, when the chaos of life is just all around us. We're surrounded by things just not making sense and things going wild, and it's affecting us by making us angry or depressed or anxious or um, sorrowful, or whatever the emotion might be that relates to whatever life is bringing your way. This psalm will be helpful to you. Make it one of your go-to psalms, and make, as much as I like verse 1, make verse 10 your go-to verse. When things are chaotic in your life, make verse 10 the first thing you think of, the first verse you go to, the first thing you meditate on. This this verse is extremely powerful in reorienting your heart and your mind back toward God. That's why we're going to look at it today. All right. So let's read through it. It says, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth." So immediately I'm looking at punctuation, and I see these 3 parts, which again helps me in memorization by breaking down a verse into its parts and working on the smaller parts and then adding each part on as I've got the previous part down. So I've got 3 parts here. I also notice that the way they've punctuated this is, even though it seems like 2 clauses, 2 separate clauses, and maybe you need a semicolon there, um, they have it punctuated as one verse. So we've got this sentence up here and then this next sentence, but we see that this second sentence is repeating this idea of I will be exalted, I will be exalted. So again, that helps us in memorizing, right? Fewer words because we're repeating words. And so all we're trying to get to in our memorization is remembering that this next word, which leads to where it's going. So I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. And so if I can get among as the first line and in as the second line, it can help trigger the memory of, okay, it's among the nations, it's in the earth. So that's our second part here. This first part is really divided into 2 sections as well, isn't it, with this comma? So we have be still and know. So these are the 2 commands. They sound like commands, right? Be still and know. So we recognize that these 2 commands are connected with this conjunction and. So they're coordinate conjunctions. In other words, they're both equally important. It's not one is supporting the other. Both are equally important, and both we ought to do. Be still and know. And know what? That, here we get the content of what we know. I am God. So recognize in this psalm, they've put here quotation marks because someone is speaking. And who is speaking in this verse? God is speaking. He is telling us to be still and know that I am God. And then he says, I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Now let's think a little bit about this word be still. It is two words in English, but one word in Hebrew. And it means let go, stop working. Some translations might say cease striving. So this idea of stop working, let go of your tools, leave them behind. It's that idea. Stop working, cease striving, be still. In the midst of the chaos, your mind is going 100 miles an hour, right? And our bodies may be going 100 miles an hour too, because of the anxiousness or fear that we feel because of whatever our situation is. So we're trying to keep busy. But this psalm, this verse, God is saying to us, let go. Drop the tools, drop the instruments of work at the moment. Figurative language, right? Stop your mind from swirling. Stop trying to figure it all out. Stop trying to understand your situation. Be still. Focus on something. Be still and what? Know that I am God. This being still is leading to this idea of knowing. And what are we to know? We are to know that God is God. God is God, ruler, sustainer, warrior, protector, shield, rock, fortress, right? It's exactly what we get in this verse. He is our fortress. He is our safe place. He is the place that we run to in the storms of life. He is our fortress, the Lord of the heavenly armies is with us. So know that I am God. All right? So let's take a look at the rest of the psalm, because the rest of the psalm feeds into why God says, I will be exalted among the nations, and why I will be exalted in the earth. We see why he's saying that as we look at the context of this psalm. So let's just scroll back up here to the top, and we'll work our way down here briefly. All right. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. All right. I told you this first verse is so good. You should memorize it. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. And what I would encourage you to do is spend some time meditating on these two words. What does it mean when he says refuge? Brainstorm ideas. That's what I mean by meditating on, thinking about. What does it mean? Brainstorm ideas or pictures of what refuge looks like and what being our strength, our refuge and our strength. Brainstorm ideas of what that looks like, what he's talking about there. Think about what it means to be not just a present help, but a very present help. Why did he add that on? A very present help in trouble. So take some time and meditate, memorize and meditate on verse 1. All right, so let's keep going. Because God is our refuge and strength, Therefore, we will not fear. Okay? The truth of who God is and who he is to us means something, has power to us. It tells us that we do not need to fear because I am God, right? Know that I am God. And so we do not need to fear. And when do we not need to fear? When the whole earth is in chaos, when creation is in chaos. Though the earth gives way and the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, and the waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble at its swelling. Even though all of this is going on, yet we will not fear. Why? Because God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. It goes on. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. In the midst of her, she shall not be moved. God will help her when the morning dawns. Now, this is a great picture here, and I think people struggle with this verse 4. And what do we mean by rivers and streams? Well, this is just a representation of the presence of God. God is present. The city of God is the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in her midst. This picture of these streams and rivers is just the abundance of goodness that God brings because he's present in this place. And if we remember, it's a very present help in times of trouble. So don't get caught up in this city of God. It's referring to Jerusalem. But for our application, God is very present right where we are. And so God's provision of his presence, his power from the river, his provision of water to sustain us. This makes us glad, and we will not be moved. We will not be moved. We will not lose heart. We will not be discouraged. We will not lose faith. We will stand strong because God is there, and we know he's in our midst and that he will help. Okay. Then it goes on, the nations rage and the kingdoms totter. Now, we had let's see if I can get this all on the screen. Yes. So we had the roaring of the waters of creation, and we have the rage of the nations. These are actually the same Hebrew words. And then we have the kingdoms totter down in verse 6, but we also have the same word used up here with the earth, and it's translated as moved. Though the mountains be moved into the heart of the sea, here we have the kingdoms totter. And we find that word, that Hebrew word, found one more time right here. She shall not be moved because God is in her midst. So the kingdoms are in chaos. The nations are raging and roaring like creation was in chaos. So the nations are in chaos all around us. And yet God is present. And he is like a river whose streams make glad the city of God. And we see as we continue on that though we've got the chaos all around us, God utters his voice. He utters his voice and the earth melts. That is God. Know that I am God. The earth and the nations don't have a chance when God comes to be your shelter, to be your refuge, to be your fortress, to be your rescuer. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our fortress. And we see this as a refrain that also ends the psalm and puts a division here. And this psalm goes on, verse 8. Come, behold the works of the Lord. Behold, look, be in awe of, be taken by, let it capture your heart, the works of the Lord. How he has brought desolations on the earth. Yes, he is the cause of that. But he is also the ceaser of wars. He makes wars cease to the ends of the earth. He breaks the bow and he shatters the spear and burns the chariots. So you see, you can just imagine Jerusalem being attacked by the Assyrians, perhaps. And the horde outside your city walls and the fear that you must be having. And yet you believe that God can make wars cease, that those bows and spears and chariots are ineffective because God is in your midst. So be still and know that I am God. This is how you get to verse 1, by letting go, being still, stop striving, and know that I am God. And then let this verse lead you back to verse 1. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore, we will not fear. Be still and know that I am God. Well, I hope this has been helpful for you today, and we'll see you next time. Blessings.